What Hitler does throughout the 1920s is he sticks to this. There is actually, when he comes out of prison there's the Bihul Putsch in November 1923. He gets charged with treason, which he has been because he's attempting a coup, and he gets sentenced to 5 years, which is pretty lenient for what he's done. And he then gets let out after 9 months. The Nazi Party is banned at that point, but then comes back into being. And the year that follows, there is then a substantial debate about where the party should go. And there are actually a large number of people who think that actually they should be looking at how the Soviets are doing things and taking some of the things that they consider to be positive out of the communist state and applying those to the Nazis. And Hitler goes, no. We've just got to stick to this kind of Jewish Bolshevik thing. This is how we're going to do it. This is how we're going to do it. Goebbels, for example, who is very open. He's very, very Joseph Goebbels he's a not very successful journalist. He is, but he does have a PhD in German literature. He's very disaffected because he was born with talipes, which is more commonly known as a clubfoot. He's disabled. He can't fight in the First World War. He's very frustrated by that. He's in a deep despair about the state of Germany in the first part of the early 1920s. He's looking for a political messiah, a sort of quasi-religious messiah. Thinks it's Hitler, then discovers that Hitler's not open to any ideas at all about any deviation, but then sees the light. Hitler recognizes that this guy is someone that he wants on his side. And so then goes to him, makes a real special effort. Come to dinner. I think you're great. All this kind of stuff. Wins it about over. And Goebbels has this complete volte-face. Discards his earlier kind of, Hitler's right, I was wrong. Hitler is the kind of messiah figure that I want to follow. I want to follow the hero leader. And they come on board and they absolutely work out. And Hitler completely wins out. Of all dissenters within what had been the German Workers' Party to what becomes the German National Socialist Party, becomes the Nazis. He comes out, emerges as the absolute undisputed Führer of that leader of that party, and what he says goes, and everyone toes in behind it. And part of the genius of that, Hitler does have some genius. I just don't think it's military, but he does have some genius. There's no question about it. Is this simplicity of message. What he's doing is it's that kind of us and them thing that we were talking about earlier on. It's the kind of either or. It's kind of, it's my way or the highway. It's kind of, this is the only way. This is how we get to the sunlit uplands. This is how we create this amazing master race of this unification of German peoples, which dominates the world, which is the preeminent power in the world for the next 1,000 years. Or it's decay and despair and being crushed by our enemies, and our enemies are the Jews and the Bolsheviks, the communists. And what he taps into as well is Frontgemeinschaft and Volksgemeinschaft. And there's no direct English translation of Volksgemeinschaft or indeed Frontgemeinschaft, but in its most basic form, it's community, it's people community or front veterans community. So the Frontgemeinschaft is, we are the guys, we're bonded because we were in the trenches. We were in the First World War. We were the people who bravely stuck it out, saw our friends being slaughtered and blown to pieces. We did our duty as proud Germans, but we were let down by the elites, and we were let down by this Jewish Bolshevik plot. We were stabbed in the back. The myth of stabbing in the back is very, very strong. So we're bound, we're bonded by our experience of the First World War and the fact that we did what we should and what we could, and we didn't fail in what we were doing. We were failed by our leaders and by the elites. So that's Frontgemeinschaft. Volksgemeinschaft is this sense of national unity. It's a cultural, ethnic bonding of people who speak German, who have a similar outlook on life. And again, that just reinforces the us and them.
Good and evil.
It reinforces the black and white worldview. And then you add that to this very simple message, which Hitler is repeating over and over again. Communists are a big threat. Jews are a big threat. They're the enemy. You have to have an opposition in the them and us kind of process, and that's what he's doing. And people just buy into it. They go, yeah, we're together. We're Germans. We're a brotherhood. We've got our Volksgemeinschaft. And so he cleverly ties into that and taps into that. But they're an irrelevance by the late 1920s. By 1928, he's not going to get a deal for Mein Kampf Part 2. He's impoverished. The party's impoverished. Numbers are down. They're kind of, at best an irrelevance.
We should say he wrote Mein Kampf at this time when he was in prison.
Well, he writes most of Mein Kampf in prison, in Landsberg prison, and then he writes the rest of it in what becomes known as the Kampfhausel, which is this little wooden hut in the Obersalzberg. And you can still see the remnants of that. And unfortunately, there's still little candles there and stuff in the woods, and by neo-Nazis and what have you. But that's where he wrote the rest of it. It was Jean-Jacques Rousseau who says man has his greatest thoughts when surrounded by nature. That was something that kind of Hitler took very much to heart. Mm-hmm. There was a mentor of his called Dietrich Eckart. Dietrich Eckart introduced him to the Obersalzberg and the beauty of the southeast Bavarian Alps around Berchtesgaden. And that was his favorite place on the planet, and that's where he eventually bought the Berghof with the royalties. It has to be said, from Mein Kampf, which went from being almost pulp to suddenly being a runaway bestseller. Unfortunately,
can you actually comment on that? It's a shitty manifesto as far as manifestos goes. I think there's a lot of values to understand from a first-person perspective the words of a dictator, of a person like Hitler, but it just feels like that's just such a shitty...
Yeah, it's banned in a number of countries. You don't need to, because no one's going to read it because it's unreadable. It's very untidy. It's very incoherent. It's got no... there's no narrative arc, to use a kind of a writer's phrase. But it does give you a very clear... the overall impression you get at the end of it is the kind of communists and the Jews are to blame for everything.
Yeah, but there's also the component of, predicting basically World War II there. So it's not just they're to blame for everything.
He's hungry for war.
Right.
He thinks that this is the natural state, that we have to have this terrible conflict, and once the conflict's over, Germany will emerge victorious, and then there will be the 1,000-year Reich. I'm finding myself in talking to you, I keep saying this kind of, it's Armageddon or the 1,000-year Reich. It's because it comes up, it's unavoidable, because that's how he's speaking the whole time. It's just this same message over and over and over and over again.
It's a pretty unique way of speaking, sort of allowing violence as a tool in this picture, that there's a hierarchy, that there's a superior race and inferior races, and it's okay to destroy the inferior ones.
Yeah.
Usually politicians don't speak that way. They just say, well, here's good and evil. We're the good guys. And yeah, maybe we'll destroy the evil a little bit. No, here is like there's a complete certainty about a very large number of people, the Slavic people. They just need to be removed.
Well, they need to be made an irrelevance. We have to take it. And if that kills millions of them, fine. Then they can sort of squish their way over to Siberia.
Right. It doesn't matter where they go.
Kamchatka, whatever they go. I don't care.
We just need to populate this land
right.
that belongs to the German people.
Yeah.
Because they're the superior people.
There's no question that he glorifies violence and war. He's absolutely chomping at the bit. And in a way, I think he's a bit disappointed that in the 1930s, the conquests that he does undertake are also peaceful. March 1938 goes straight into Austria. There's the Anschluss, not a shot is fired. 1936 goes into the Rhineland, reconquers that, retakes that over that from the occupying Allies. Not a shot is fired. He takes the Sudetenland, barely a shot is fired, and then goes into the rest of Czechoslovakia in March 1939, and again barely a shot is fired, and it's a bit disappointing. He wants to be tested. He wants to kind of have the wartime triumph. You can see him being frustrated about this in the Munich crisis in 1938. He wants to fight. He's absolutely spoiling for it. He's desperate to go in. He's all ready and gung ho. He's built his Luftwaffe. He's got his panzers now. He's got his massive armed forces. He wants to test them. He wants to get this show on the road and prove it. He's an arch gambler, Hitler.